Hello everyone. In today's video, I would like to go through the 2023 quarter 3 figures from Luckin Coffee. Luckin Coffee published their quarter 3 figures on November 1st, and as always, I took all the numbers and keyed them into my Excel sheet where I keep track of all financial figures development. Now, this is only to share my process of analysis. I'm not recommending any specific investment, and you always have to do your own research before making any decision. Now, the figures I'm looking at for Luckin Coffee are sales growth, store number, sales per store, self-operated and partnership, profit per store, overhead cost development, profit margin development, profit per share, and cash flow per share. So let's jump into it. Starting with sales. The overall sales growth with the 16% growth rate quarter over quarter looks still quite okay. The number of stores is almost exploding. We have 23% quarter over quarter growth in the number of stores, which is extremely high. But if we look to the sales per store growth, we have a negative growth. That means we have more stores, but each store doing less sales than in the quarter before. So what about the profitability? As always, I split into two areas. We have first the store level operating profit, which only considers the sales, the material cost, store operations, depreciation, and delivery expense. And then in the next step, the overheads and the overall profit. For the profit per store, we have a similar picture like for the sales per store. We have a decrease from 59,000 RMB per store per month in quarter 2 down to 47,000 RMB per store per month. For the overhead cost, we had 12.2% in percent of sales in quarter 2, and now we are at 12.5%, which for me is flat. Taking together a decreasing store level operating profit and stable overhead, we see a decreasing profit both in absolute numbers and in percent of sales. So if we put all the key figures together, we have decreasing operating profit, both in margin and in absolute figures. We have an extreme growth in the number of stores. We have decreasing sales per store. That means a negative sales per store growth rate. The store level operating profit decreasing, while the overhead cost is stable. Overall, these figures were a bit of a negative surprise to me, to be honest. But we have to think from a strategic point of view whether these figures do make sense. So what does this all mean? In addition to the figures, we have to think about Luckin strategy. And then we have to decide whether from a strategic point of view, the figures actually do make sense or not. Traditionally, you have different types of strategies on the market. You could go for cost leadership, you could go for product leadership, and of course, the way you steer the company would be completely different. It also makes a huge difference if you're in a growth phase or in a flat market and how big the addressable market is. So for Luckin, it's relatively clear that they go for cost leadership. And now I took some comments from the earnings call to try to make sense of everything. What they mention is that the market is far from saturated. It is highly competitive, and they describe it still as a historic growth opportunity. What they said clearly is that they prioritize growth, branding, and the market share over the current profitability. Now, this is something that can be discussed, but at least from a strategic point of view, the things do fit together. The market is competitive, without any doubt. It looks that the market is not saturated if we look at the growth rates. And so far, the strategy to establish a brand and penetrate the market very quickly has paid off for Luckin. So from a strategic point of view, I would see the figures much more relaxed. So from this point of view, everything does fit together, the strategy and the financial figures. It does make a certain sense to me. So although I'm not really excited about the numbers, I still think that Luckin has a valid strategy, and overall I'm willing to further invest in the company. So if you take again the overall picture, you take the profit per share, which stands at 1.8, no, I'm in US dollar, $1.8 per share, with a cash flow of $1.1 per share annualized. The stock price when I did this video was 33 US dollar, which is a price earnings ratio of 18.2. And if I add up the growth so far, I would expect 100% growth rate for this year. So what could be a fair valuation? So if I now consider a 100% growth rate, I would put a PE ratio of at least 45, which leads me to a valuation of $82 per share. Now, unfortunately, this is nothing that we will see very quickly. This is only based on the Q3 figures. It would only consider the very near future, no further growth potentials. So I still think that this valuation is far too low. If we consider a long-term growth scenario, we would come up with much higher valuations. The bad thing is that the question for a relisting on a major stock market was answered negatively from Luckin during the earnings call. So this won't give any boost to the stock price soon. The international expansion has started, first to Singapore, but also this, I think, in the short term won't really drive the stock price up too much. So although I do believe that they have a valid strategy, that they are drastically undervalued currently with $33, I do not expect any very quick gains in the stock price. But I'm not here just for the short term. For me, it's still a great growth stock because over the next years, I am very confident that this stock will go up. So I have it still as the biggest portion in my portfolio, and I expect a solid growth over the next years. So that's it for today's video. In the next videos, I will talk about the strategy of Luckin Coffee in some more detail. I'm also planning to do a video on the long-term growth scenario. If you liked it, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and then see you in the next videos.